After years of relentless campaigning and having reached the Hypsis River bias in India, Alexander the Great's ambition to march to the world's end clashed head-on with the exhaustion and despair of his soldiers. In the summer of 326 BCE, the seemingly unstoppable Macedonian army finally said no more. This mutiny, or collective refusal to advance, was a bitter pill for Alexander, forcing him to confront the limits of his authority and the human cost of his boundless aspirations. By July or August of 326 BCE, Alexander the Great had led his army across the Punjab, successfully navigating the Indus, Assanines, Chenab, and Hydaspes, Ravi rivers, defeating various Indian rulers and tribes along the way. He now stood on the western bank of the Hypsis River, modern Bias River, the easternmost of the 5 great rivers of the Punjab. Beyond the Hypsis lay, according to his information, the vast Gangetic Plain and the powerful Nanda Empire, reputed to possess an immense army, including thousands of war elephants. For Alexander, this was the final frontier before reaching what he believed to be the Eastern Ocean, the end of the world. However, the mood within his army had reached a breaking point. The Macedonian and Greek veterans had been on campaign for over 8 grueling years. They had marched thousands of miles from their homes, endured extreme climates, fought countless battles and sieges, and witnessed the deaths of many comrades. They were physically exhausted, psychologically drained, and laden with the spoils of war which they longed to take home and enjoy. The recent battle of the Hydaspes against Paris, though a victory, had been particularly bloody and had given them a terrifying taste of Indian warfare, especially the destructive power of war elephants. The prospect of facing an even larger Indian army, with many more of these fearsome beasts, filled them with dread. Furthermore, the monsoon season was in full swing, with incessant rains turning the land into a quagmire, making campaigning miserable and disease rampant. Their armor rusted, their clothes rotted, and their spirits sank. Alexander, still driven by his insatiable pathos and his desire to reach the outer ocean, called an assembly of his officers and then his troops. He delivered a powerful and impassioned speech, attempting to rekindle their fighting spirit and persuade them to advance further. He reminded them of their past victories, the immense glory they had achieved, and the vast territories they had conquered. He spoke of the fabled riches that lay ahead and the immortal fame that would be theirs if they reached the end of the world. He argued that to turn back now, when they were so close to their ultimate goal, would be to tarnish their achievements and leave their conquests incomplete. He appealed to their loyalty, their courage, and their Macedonian pride. His words, however, were met with a stony silence. The soldiers, for perhaps the first time in the campaign, were unresponsive to their king's charisma. After a long, uncomfortable pause, Okeanos, son of Polemocrates, one of Alexander's most respected and senior generals, a commander of a phalanx brigade who had served with distinction throughout the campaigns, stepped forward to speak on behalf of the army. Okeanos' speech, as reported by Arian, was a model of respectful but firm dissent. He began by reaffirming the army's loyalty and admiration for Alexander, acknowledging his unparalleled leadership and the incredible victories they had achieved under him. However, he then went on to articulate the deep weariness and homesickness of the soldiers. He spoke of their dwindling numbers, not just from battle casualties, but also from disease and the garrisons left behind to secure conquered territories. He pointed out their tattered clothing, their worn-out weapons, and their longing to see their parents, wives, and children once more. He emphasized that while their spirit was willing, their bodies and their morale were exhausted. He gently but firmly conveyed the army's collective desire to go no further east, to turn back and enjoy the fruits of their labors. He concluded by advising Alexander that it was sometimes the mark of a great leader to know when to stop, to recognize limits. Okeanos' words clearly resonated with the common soldiers, who reportedly broke into tears and shouts of approval, indicating their overwhelming support for his plea. Alexander was stunned and deeply angered by this open opposition, the first serious challenge to his authority from his own army. He felt betrayed and misunderstood. He dismissed the assembly abruptly and withdrew into his tent, reportedly refusing to speak to anyone for 3 days, hoping that his displeasure and a period of reflection might cause the soldiers to relent and change their minds. During these 3 days, the camp was filled with an anxious silence. The soldiers remained resolute in their refusal to advance further, but they were also deeply troubled by their king's anger and disappointment. Alexander, for his part, was engaged in a profound internal struggle. His ambition, his pothos, his desire to achieve what no man had ever achieved, clashed with the undeniable reality of his army's exhaustion and their collective will. On the 3rd day, Alexander emerged from his tent. He announced that he had consulted the sacrificial omens regarding a further advance eastward. And conveniently, perhaps, the omens were unfavorable. This provided him with a way to concede to his army's demands without appearing to have simply buckled under pressure, thus preserving a measure of his authority and dignity. He declared that they would turn back. The news was greeted with an explosion of joy and relief throughout the army. Soldiers wept, cheered, and crowded around Alexander's tent, thanking him and hailing him as their unconquered king who had only been defeated by their own desires. For Alexander, however, it was a bitter moment, a profound disappointment. He had been forced to abandon his cherished dream of reaching the Eastern Ocean. While he had conquered vast lands, this one boundary, set not by an enemy army but by the limits of his own men's endurance, he could not overcome. To mark the limit of his eastward advance, Alexander ordered the construction of 12 massive stone altars, dedicated to the 12 Olympian gods, on the western bank of the Hypsis River. These altars, each reportedly 50 cubits high, were intended to be a monumental testament to the extent of his conquests and a thank-offering to the gods. He also held athletic games and sacrifices. The mutiny at the Hypsis, though perhaps more accurately described as a collective refusal or protest, was a critical turning point. It marked the furthest extent of Alexander's eastward land campaign.